Hello and welcome to the new Audi A6 e-tron Avant. It's a new, luxurious, practical electric family car that isn't an SUV. 5 stars. What do you mean longer?
We need a proper intro.
What do you want? Killers of the Flower Moon?
Just do your job.
Hello, this is the new Audi A6 e-tron Avant, and it's a big, luxurious, practical electric family car that isn't an SUV. But wait, there's more. Allow me to explain why. Welcome to the Audi A6, and welcome to the Fully Charged Show.
Try everything electric at our exhibitions in Australia, Canada and the UK. Next up, London.
First things first, handsome old barge, isn't it? I would describe the exterior of this car as striking yet slippery, which is a difficult two things to be. Oftentimes, when brands really prioritise aerodynamic efficiency with the design of their cars, as Audi have done with this one, you end up with something that looks a bit like a melted Mars bar. Not naming any names, Mercedes. But this doesn't. I think it's brawny and muscular and mean and all those things you want your expensive German execubage to be. I like these skinny DRLs. I quite like the black fascia, which kind of hides the stuff that they don't want you to notice, like the main beams and the sensors. I just like the proportions of the thing. I think it's got a real kind of muscularity to it, which makes the slipperiness all the more impressive. This is the most aerodynamically efficient car that Audi has ever made. And it's not all about the shape. There's clever little things that aren't immediately obvious. There are active flaps inside the grille that open at certain speeds, which add, allegedly, an extra 7.5 miles of range. There are camera wing mirrors, slippery, extra 7.5 miles of range. Allegedly, there's a completely flat floor underneath. There's flush door handles. All these little touches amount to a bar of soap, essentially, a really slippery car. Bottom line, how efficient is it? Well, it's really cold here in England. It was about 0 degrees when I set off and drove to this location, and I was doing about 3 miles to the kilowatt hour, which is, yeah, it's not groundbreaking, but this is a big, heavy car. If you think about early Porsche Taycans, you were happy to see 2 miles to the kilowatt hour in optimal condition. So this is progress. It's not an Aptera, but it does mean that this one with the bigger battery is an all year round 300-mile car, and in warmer climates, 400 plus, entirely realistic. This, I like this. Look, it's a new estate car. It's not an SUV. This makes me happy. Not everyone that wants a big, practical vehicle also wants to be sat 7 feet off the ground for no particular reason. And the fact that this is an estate car instead of a crossover just means it's going to be better to drive because it's lower to the ground. It helps with the whole efficiency thing because it's less big and bulky at the front, but you still get all of that lovely practicality from the big old boot. And it is a big old boot. Bizarrely, it's actually the exact same literage as the non-estate version. I can't quite figure out how that works, but it's a better shape, more practical shape. You can get a medium-sized dog or two in there if you were so inclined. And of course, what this can do that the Sportsback can't is turn into a little van. You fold these down and you've got a huge cavernous space back there. Lovely flat lip. Look at that, so practical. Also, thing worth noting at the back, the badge. Audi have changed their badge strategy yet again. It was going to be that electric cars would have even numbers, like A6, and petrol cars would have odd numbers, but they've thrown that out the window. They're smushing them all together again. They're just going to badge the electric cars e-tron. As such, there is now going to be a petrol A6, although that will sit on the PPC platform, not the PPE platform like this electric one. Also, forget everything I just said when the new A5 comes out, which typically would be an A4, but under the old strategy, it's an A5 because it's petrol, but under the new strategy, they've decided to keep it as A5, you know, to make things less confusing.
We're really excited to partner with Duracell Energy to showcase their amazing renewable energy solutions. If you want to reduce your energy bills and join the renewable energy transition, installing home battery storage and solar panels at home is a great way to start. Duracell Energy's ecosystem of products typically partners with solar panels, but they can be just as effective without it, particularly for electric vehicle owners or anyone looking to take control of their energy. And with Duracell Energy's Platinum Homeowner offer, viewers can get a custom service that pairs you with top quality products and the best installers in your area. Duracell Energy's batteries, inverters and EV chargers work together on one easy-to-use app. With features like dynamic tariff integration and grid services, you'll be able to maximise your return. Ready to get started? You can get your quote today. And don't forget, we're also giving away a Duracell Energy Bunny in every episode. Just answer the question about Fully Charged by following the link in the description. Good luck!
So, out on the road in the Audi A6, and goodness me, oh goodness me, this is a nice thing to cover distance in. You know, the first things that I noticed when I was driving this were just a few little details. For one, the visibility is fantastic. I can see exactly where the end of that sloped, stubby little nose is, and because it's an estate instead of a swoopy, coopy thing like everything else at the moment, it's got a proper rear windscreen which I can see out of the back of. Feels like a novelty almost to have really good visibility in a new car, and the thing about good visibility is it makes a big car feel less big. It's when you can't quite tell where the extremities are that cars feel enormous on the road, but because I kind of have a good sense of the dimensions of this thing, that helps me better enjoy narrow, twisty little A roads and B roads that make up so much of this country. I like the driving position, it's absolutely spot on. I like the seats, I like this steering wheel, which is nice and thin and has these perfect two little nooks to hook your thumbs in when you really want to start going at it. As far as performance and handling, well, it's got quite a lot of both. This is the performance version of the A6, which takes the horsepower from plenty to slightly more than plenty, and the battery size from big to flipping massive. It's not brutal, there's no violence to the acceleration, but it's there. You're not going to struggle with overtakes. And actually, if you live in a country with de-restricted autobahns, for example, take my word for it, you're not going to struggle to sit at 100 odd miles per hour. And when you do, in this car, it feels like 20. So quiet, no wind noise, no buffeting. That is exactly what you want from this type of big German executive thing. You want that effortlessness at motorway speed, and this has it. And just on those two battery sizes, generally speaking, I turn my nose up at anything with a whopping battery because I just think it's a little bit unnecessary. But in fairness, I like that there's the two options. You've got your 86 kilowatt hour entry-level battery, which will be more than enough for most people. And then you've got the performance with the, I think, 95 kilowatt hour usable. That's this one, 300 miles all year round, 400 plus in the right conditions. And if there was any type of vehicle that it makes sense to give a huge battery to and huge range, it's one of these, because that's what these cars are all about. Crushing continents, devouring autobahns. And you used to need a big dirty diesel in order to achieve that, but now you can do it with an EV. The one thing I'm not so crazy about in the way this car drives, quite firm. Bit surprising, actually. I thought it would be a little bit more soft and squashy than it actually is, and I guess that's just because the car is so heavy with that huge battery. And of course, because it's not an SUV, one assumes that means there's slightly less suspension travel to work with, so it has to be fairly firm. Bit of a shame. If you're coming out of a Porsche Taycan, for example, this is going to feel uncomfortable by comparison, but it is also an awful lot cheaper than the Taycan. This thing not only massively undercuts the Taycan, but it's cheaper than the BMW i5 and the Mercedes EQE, which are probably its closest rivals. Now then, the interior of the Audi A6 e-tron. I'll just say this, I sure hope you like screens and haptic buttons, because there is quite a lot of those things in here. Let's start with the screens. There are 5 of them. There are 5 of them. You've got the 2 main ones, gauge cluster, quote unquote, infotainment screen, fine, great, work beautifully. You've got the ones for the camera wing mirrors, which actually I don't mind. They're better angled, the screens that is, than they were on the original e-tron, where you basically had to stare at your own crotch in order to check if there was anything in the lane next to you. They've kind of just angled them a bit better so they're easier to look at. And they are better in weather than glass wing mirrors, but I do find in terms of depth perception, they take a little bit of getting used to. I'm not 100% sure that they're worth the extra 7 miles of range. I think maybe if you could have just normal ones, I would. And then there's the passenger screen, and I'm going to rant about this very quickly. Can we just stop it with these? No one is asking for that. No one has ever been driving along and thought, God, I wish my passenger had more control over the climate and what station we're listening to. It's not, I don't even think people want them as passengers. It's just tech for tech's sake. And yeah, don't bother, not interested. Having said that, everything works really well in here, including all the haptic buttons on the inside of the door and on the steering wheel. Everything is intuitive and there's a nice tactility to it, and the infotainment is quick and responsive, and it's got Apple CarPlay wireless, and it's just a very seamless experience. And once you get used to the slight sensory overload of all the screens and all the different stalks, it's actually quite easy to get along with. There's a couple of slightly yucky things. This glove box lid makes that noise. I'm sure that's just a slightly weird defect with this particular car. Also, I'm going to sound pedantic, but the sliding cover for the cup holders is hideous. It's the nastiest little cheap bit of plastic. It really lets this whole area down. If you're ever in one of these cars, have a fiddle with this, you'll see what I mean. Other than that, the build quality, the material quality is superb. The entry-level version of this car costs damn near the same as the launch version of the new Tesla Model Y, and the difference in terms of the quality inside is, I mean, immeasurable. Now, this car I'm sitting in is not the base car. It's got the big battery, it's got more power, and because it's a press car, it's just about got every option available. It's some £24,000 more expensive than the entry-level A6 e-tron. There's a lot of gadgetry and tech. Too much to mention, but there are two things that I just want to shout out very quickly. Bang & Olufsen sound system is banging. It is, and Olufsening. It's really good. It's one of maybe the best I've ever had in a car. Love that. And also, I know it's childish, but come on, the photochromatic sunroof that does the special magic trick, and you can sort of do the Billie Jean intro with it. Oh, that's pretty cool as well. I like that. Back seats. Right. Backseat test. Don't be alarmed if you can just see a small slice of some enormous object in the front. That's Andy's head. This car does that thing where you open the driver's door and then the seats slide back, which I hate that feature. So in order to simulate my driving position, Andy is simulating me. Now then, this is a big practical estate car. It's got to be roomy in the back. It has to be. And this ain't bad. Headroom, great. Even at 6'5", whatever I am today. I can't actually really touch the roof. I have to, if I really sit up straight, I just about can, but no one is going to complain about headroom back here. Legroom is okay. I can tuck my feet under the seat a little bit. My knees are high. That's the thing. This is quite ironic because, of course, I'm always moaning about everything being an SUV. The thing about electric SUVs is they're taller, so there's more room for the battery and therefore more room for your feet. This is an estate car. It's quite low down, and there is a big battery underneath me, and the result is that my knees are up here. There are clever things you can do. Audi could have made two little kind of indents in the battery pack where the footwells are to allow you a bit more room, but that's costly and arduous. But this isn't bad. I'm pretty happy back here. I do like these seats as well. They're really comfy front and back, and I like the material choice, but I will say that having recently spent some time in a Polestar 4, which is a close rival to this, this does strike me as a slightly old-fashioned approach toward luxury. And what I mean by that is just these types of materials and having tons and tons of screens and information, that kind of feels a bit like the old way of doing luxury, where the new way is more sustainable materials and maybe less buttons and less screens. It's purely down to personal preference. I actually think I'm getting along better with the user interface of the Audi, but I would love to see them experimenting with some cool, clever flax fibre and what have you. But it's nice. So, Audi A6, what do we think? Well, do you know what? It's evolution, not revolution. I kind of thought it would feel a little bit more groundbreaking. There is this narrative around this car that this is the one that Audi's really lumped the kitchen sink at and made it all efficiency. The truth is, with its improved aerodynamics, it is now acceptably efficient, whereas I sort of think the Q8, for example, is unacceptably inefficient. I don't really want to see any new EVs that can do less than 3 miles to the kilowatt hour, even on a cold day, and this now hits that bare minimum for big, heavy electric cars, in my opinion. But that was always the thing that held electric Audis back, and they've rectified it now. Everything else they've been good at for some time, so you've got this enormous suite of tech that just works extremely well. Everything from the cruise control to the augmented reality heads-up display to the infotainment to the voice command even, it all just works awfully well. And it still feels a little safe in here to me in terms of how they've approached the interior, the user interface. It's all very familiar. But I think that's probably by design. I think they're probably trying to make this car make the most sense possible to someone who currently drives a big petrol or diesel Audi. And if you want something that feels new and different and is made of funky bamboo type materials, then there are other options available. The Polestar 4 springs to mind as a very different take on the same sort of car. But I have to say I'm very taken by this thing. I'm so delighted to see Audi focusing a little bit more on efficiency, improving what was one of the big weaknesses of their car. And I think the biggest measurement of how far this brand has come on their EV journey is the fact that this car to me is 9/10 what you get from the bigger, more expensive Audi Q8 for almost 10 grand less. It's moving in the right direction. So there we go, the Audi A6 e-tron coming soon to a tailgate near you. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and if you have been, thanks for watching.